Thank you all. I'm taking it down a notch. So, I'm a teacher. I was unable to operate it quicker. I'm a teacher. And the corner of education that I teach in is an area of such ill repute that it can be condensed down to a single number that will make everyone in this room shudder. Or, if you're over 30, maybe this is enough that makes you shudder. So that's right, I'm a test prepper. In the company that I work with, Testive, we've helped thousands of students improve their scores on these standardized exams. And the corner of education that we work in is not an area held in very high esteem or high regard, but it is an area really fundamentally tied to the history of higher education in this country. And today I want to talk a little bit about how the changes in what we've seen in standardized tests, how they reflect how we think about the very nature of intelligence, and what that means for what our education is going to look like going forward. So our story begins at Harvard. And in the 1920s, Harvard wasn't the school that you know of as today. It was a school that admission to was primarily based on your last name, your wealth, and what school you went to beforehand. Did you go to a Deerfield or a Groton or a Phillips or an Exeter? It was said of a Harvard student at that time that you could always tell a Harvard man, but you can't tell him much. I'll be needing both of those. And in 1933, the president of Harvard, James Bryant Conant, well, he wanted to change this. He had a vision for a different type of university, a national university, one that would select the best and the brightest students from across the country. But he had a problem in bringing this vision to reality, because the education of those farm boys from Iowa that he imagined plucking to an elite institute of higher learning, they just didn't have the same educational background and preparation that the students from those Deerfields or those Grotons had. And he had no way to compare their educational achievement with each other. And giving them tests of the material that had been tested in high school, well, it was felt that that would be unfair because there was no way those students could achieve. Their education that they were receiving was inferior. It wasn't at the same level of challenge. And so he found his solution in a test, one that we're familiar with, the SAT, then called the Scholastic Aptitude Test. And the really key word here is aptitude, because the makers of the test wanted to design a test that didn't reflect what you had learned, but one that measured your ability to learn, your ability to perform in college, on a measure of something that they felt was inherent and born inside of you. One that I think the test makers would probably, in their quieter moments, have frankly called intelligence. And because it was an inherent quality, they believed it wasn't something that you could teach or coach or get better at. It was a fundamental aspect of your brain that you were given at birth. But there was a man who believed something different. For me, one of the heroes of this story. And that man was Stanley Kaplan. Actually, just at this time, a tutor from Brooklyn, child of Lithuanian immigrants, who believed that he'd always been denied access to medical school because he was Jewish, and he'd gone to a public university. And what's little known about this man is that he loved the SAT. He thought it was wonderful that it was a test that governed your access to higher education, not a measure of your wealth or your birth, that it was something that you could be objectively measured, and that indeed he believed you could get better at it with hard work and practice. And one other thing, content. And the makers of the test, they said that coaching was impossible to do, but just in case they didn't release any of the questions or tell you at all the format of the test in any way whatsoever. So Stanley Kaplan devised a little ritual. He started to coach students on the SAT, And after every SAT test, he would invite students to his house for a barbecue. And before you got your first hot dog, he had one little request of you, well, maybe two. Give me two questions that you memorized from today's SAT test. And with that, he created the first bank of questions and began to coach students on the test. And the College Board, makers of the test, they were pissed. And this being a great American story, what do we do when we're pissed? Well, we sue. And so the College Board convinced the Federal Trade Commission to investigate Stanley Kaplan for false advertising claims. And after 4 years of investigation, the FTC found that indeed, Kaplan was right. You could get better on the SAT through hard work and preparation. Now, not by as much as Stanley Kaplan claimed that you could, but so began the test prep industry that we know today. An escalating industry of both the test and the test prep that goes with it, till it's nearly, with the SAT and the ACT, a ubiquitous part of American educational life. And as the test became ubiquitous, we discovered some results about it that were really unsatisfying and kind of disturbing to us. You can see here, this is a chart of the average SAT score divided by family income. And those from the lowest income brackets scored almost 400 points on average lower than students from the highest income brackets. Asians on average score higher than white students, who on average score higher than African American and Latino students. And if this is true, then that says some pretty disturbing things about us and our society, and brings up some really disturbing implications of this concept that we call aptitude. If we're actually born with a certain level of fixed intelligence, then what do those results mean? Thankfully, we have information now that says that not only is this not a comfortable thing, but that this is wrong. That the whole idea of aptitude is a misunderstanding of how intelligence works. A rather famous study by Carol Dweck, most of the teachers in the room will be familiar with this, asked 500 fifth graders. They gave them a simple test, of an overly easy, called an IQ test. And all the students did well. And afterwards, half of them, they praised them with one line of praise. They said, "Wow, you must be smart." And the other half, they gave a different line of praise. They said, "Wow, you must work really hard." And they gave all those same students a difficult test. And the smart students, they gave up earlier. They found it more challenging. They did worse. The hardworking students, they said the difficult test was interesting and enjoyable and challenging. And then they gave everyone an equally easy test, and the students who were told that they were smart on the first one did worse on this equally easy test. They had taken the difficult test as evidence that they weren't really smart, and it shut down. And the students who'd been told that they worked hard, well, they did better on the equally easy test the next time around. And Dweck, her take on this was that there are two mindsets, what she called a fixed mindset, what I think of as a mindset of aptitude, a mindset that our intelligence is inherent within us, it's something that we're born with. And that mindset turns out to be destructive. It means that we can't get better. And a more accurate belief, and also a more productive one, is the understanding that our mind is like a muscle. If we work it, it gets better, and it gets stronger, and we actually get smarter. And that's moved us from an attitude entirely within education and within these tests, from one of aptitude to a model of achievement, where we believe that what the test should measure is not some future ability to do well, but actually a measure of how we've done thus far and the work that we've done. And I've seen this in my work with students as well, that what separates students who are able to improve from ones who aren't is the belief that their hard work is going to pay off. And one of the dirty secrets of test prep is that when you hire a tutor, you don't actually hire them because of their score or because of the knowledge they have. You hire them, if they're successful, because of their ability to help motivate your student to engage with the material and to believe that the student's work can make a difference. And that's why that work is worth doing. And so Dweck found this, and I've seen this, and I believe that this is going to lead to two really important changes in education and how we think about success and reaching for every student this pinnacle of achievement. There's two things that we need, much like Stanley Kaplan did. The first one is content. And we have that in a way that we've never had before. There was a time, people remember, where you could not buy a textbook as a normal person off the street. And even if you could buy one, it didn't have the answers in it. You had to get a special teacher's edition. Well, now a single 8 gigabit thumb drive holds enough material for you to spend your entire academic career just reading the contents of that drive. With the internet, we have access to unlimited content on unlimited subjects, and that content is only going to get better and more compelling and easier to digest. But simply reading and interacting is not how humans learn. The other way that we learn is we're social creatures. We learn through motivation. And part of what makes achievement possible is the belief that you can get better. And part of the support that students need to do that is the support for each and every one of them that they have that ability. And that needs to be a really personal conversation. That's about the personal motivation of each and every student. And as a society, that's been nearly impossible when our classrooms have 10 or 20 or 30 or more students in them. Part of why I get to do that is that I get to work with students one-on-one. And we now have the technology to unlock this too. The technology that we're going to see in the future won't just track grades and attendance. It'll start to track in real time where students are. We'll have dashboards that won't just tell us how a student is doing over the last month, but actually at this minute, if you need an encouraging word of help, if you need some structure, if you need to work with someone else in order to be able to get better on what you're doing. We'll be able to intervene in real time, and our teachers won't be replaced. Our teachers will become superpowered and turbocharged, not with the knowledge of the subject they're teaching, but actually the role of the teacher is going to become focused and solely about how to teach, about how to encourage every student to reach their highest potential with a limitless set of knowledge that we all have access to. That day is coming soon. And when we get there, well, that will be an achievement.